How to keep your mind sharp. The third part, the mind. Now, what is a sharp mind? It's a sharp mind is a concentrated mind. And the mind which is not sharp is a distracted mind. So, the main point of a sharp mind is concentration. But in daily life, the mind of most people is constantly distracted. The body is here, but the mind is somewhere else. The hands are doing one thing, but the mind is thinking about something else. And if the mind is not here, how could the mind remember what you have done in a certain situation? If the mind were absent, the mind cannot remember. So it's easy to understand. If you want to remember certain things, the mind has to be present in the present moment when you were doing the thing. So the main point is mindfulness. This famous words, there's so many workshops about mindfulness, but most people have no idea what it is, even if they are practicing mindfulness. It means, in very simple terms, that the mind is where the body is, and the mind is what you are doing at this given moment. The task at hand, that's the expression. So you have to know what you are doing at this present moment. And help would be when you ask yourself what I am doing in this moment, drinking coffee. Drinking coffee. So we make a mental note. I am drinking coffee. So when you are drinking coffee and you lift your cup and you sip your coffee, the mind probably thinks about something else. And then you think about this order, drinking coffee. So you bring your mind back to what you are doing now. And this is a daily task. It is not what you are doing 5 minutes as a nice exercise and then you leave it. It is a constant attention in whatever you are doing. When you go to the bathroom, you're conscious what you are doing. When you walk on the street, you're conscious of the body walking on the street. Most people are totally distracted. The worst thing today is a cell phone. How many people are walking on the street, talking to other people by phone who are not here? So the body is walking on the street but the mind is with another person who is not here. So that's a constant separation between the body and the mind. And one of the definition of yoga is bring mind and body together. That's the yoga, the real yoga. Not the other yoga, your small soul joins to the big soul. That's just philosophy. So, this is our task, to sharpen our mind, keep the mind in what you are doing, in the present moment, and don't get so easily distracted. When you walk on the street, I've seen it. The people are watching to the shops on one side, seeing new shoes on the other side. They get easily distracted. So when you walk on the street, why should you look at these shops, shoe shops, like what I'm seeing in what the back? No, you feel the walking. Your consciousness is in your feet. You observe what the legs are doing while you are walking. It's very interesting. It's much more interesting than looking around. I believe some people are watching, men are watching the legs of a girl. So this becomes a habit. Let the mind free, jumping around like a monkey without any control. And because we are surrounded by people who have no mental discipline, you think that's normal and that is okay. But I know the memory of most of the people is so weak. It becomes even weaker now because of the cell phone. You store everything in a cell phone. So you don't have to use your brain anymore to memorize certain things. So it becomes weaker and weaker. Because everybody has a weak memory and are distracted, constantly distracted, it becomes normal. And you don't see anything wrong with it. But the moment you want to use this mind for a concentrated task and keep the mind longer on one thing, to penetrate it deeper, then you will feel that you have no control over your mind. The most of the students, they have more and more problems with studying because there is so much input through the internet and through the cell phone, and the poor brain cannot digest all this bombardment. So they cannot stay for a long time just with one thing. And the worst, and that's the symbol of our distracted society, are the commercials. In 30 seconds, how many images they throw into your eyes. At the end, you cannot remember maybe one image out of 20. The other way around would be the famous sentence, Uh, Less is more. If you eat just one plate, simple plate, it is much better than taste here, taste here, taste here a little bit. Then you have really eaten, taking your time, and not in a buffet, nipping here, nipping here, nipping there. So we will say when we come to when we apply our mind, if you are really able to use your mind, if the mind obeys you. So we already found out the starting problem is the lack of mindfulness, the lack of being in the present moment, the lack of concentrating what you are doing in this present moment. And then comes memory. As I already said, if the mind is not in what you are doing now, you will not remember it. Or the impression will be so weak because the mind was not totally in the present moment that you will hardly remember, but only superficially remember certain things. So it is tied together with the concentrated mind in the present moment and a strong memory. And very important is also to slow down, not by age, because people when they get older they become slower and slower and slower. I mean, we can walk quickly, even if you're 80 and 100. The people they walk quickly. There's um, no need to walk slowly, but to slow down. Let's say taking a coffee, so you give the mind more time to concentrate on what you're doing. So there are people, they shuffle one spoonful into the mouth and they're still chewing the first spoon when the next spoon is coming in and the next spoon, and so they cannot really taste it. In a monastery where I was in, they give you a lot of time to eat. So for finishing one plate of vegetable soup, half an hour. So you take in one spoon and you savor it. And you don't take in the next spoon until you have finished the first one. So take your time so you can concentrate more, and it gives more time to penetrate things. And then you may remember things more clearly, more precisely, and more profoundly. So we come to the first, it's not an exercise, but where you apply it. Where can you check your memory? If your memory is good and if your mind is sharp. A simple exercise is at the end of the day, you sit in a very comfortable chair. It's not so good to lay down, otherwise you will fall asleep too easily. And remember the day in such a way as you would have taken a movie of your day. And start different ways, but let's say you start in the morning and go around the day. until the moment you are in now, sitting in your comfortable chair. And there are two tools which makes it easy, or easy, yeah. One is remember the place where you have been at a certain hour. So it's location and time. You say at 9 o'clock, where have I been at 9 o'clock? Maybe in the kitchen. So you project yourself again with the whole body into the kitchen. You feel again in the kitchen. And it was at about 9 o'clock. So the second question, then comes the question, what did I do at this time, at this place? Drinking, preparing my morning coffee, drinking my morning coffee. What we could do is have a quick review of the whole day. At 10 o'clock, I was in my car. I went to Akizur, and at 2 o'clock, we were having lunch, and in the afternoon, we were watching a movie, and so on. So, in a very quick way. So, you get your whole day back. And then you enter some details. Can you remember when you were taking your coffee, morning coffee, and what did you think? And what did you feel? So it becomes more subtle and more subtle and deeper and deeper. There are people, many people, they cannot even remember in the afternoon what they have eaten. And to remember the taste of what they're eating is even more difficult. So remembering the day is applying your sharp mind and checking your memory. If you don't, if you are not able to remember what you have lived through, how will you remember other things, like a movie, or what you read in a book, or what you saw you in the television? First, start with your own life, what you have experienced, felt with your own body, with your own mind. So we start with this, remembering the day. Let's apply the sharp mind to other things. Most people don't read anymore. It's much easier to watch a movie. Okay. The good thing is, if you have the CD, you can watch the movie many times and play it back and start again. So that gives us the possibility to check our memory. Let's say you take part of a movie, stop it, close your eyes, and try to visualize the scenes. What have you seen? The actors, the background, and then remember what they were talking about. And then check again, rewind the CD, go back, and watch the same scene again. And compare it, what you see now and what you retained after the first viewing. How much could you remember, or can you remember? And then you correct your mental movie with the real movie. So that's another exercise which later on you apply to your own life, like it were a movie. At night you watch a movie. The only thing is you cannot repeat your day. You have to keep it here, and you cannot check it if it really was uh, how you imagined. And for those few people who still are reading, you read a page. There are people who are reading bestsellers, thick like this, and when you ask them afterwards, what do you remember? Well, just a few things of a big book. I remember when I was young, I could read a book once that I could tell you the whole story. And still, my memory is so good, I read an article and I can tell you, even with the numbers in the article, what I have read once. So you read a page, close the book, and remember. First of all, you visualize. The one secret of a good memory is the capacity to visualize. You take a mental photo, let's say for the whole page, the visual memory, and then you visualize the scene. And then it's easy to describe what you visualize, that you describe your mental image. And then open the book again, have a look of you if you missed some parts of what you read, or correct it. So we have already three exercises: remembering the day, remembering a scene in a movie, and remembering a page. Supposingly, your mind, through these kind of exercises, is becoming sharper. One very important thing is interest, motivation. If something interests you strongly, obviously you will be attentive, and your mind is there because it's fascinated with what you see. So, interests, uh, things should interest you. Obviously, what other people find interesting, I don't find interesting. Let's say football. I wouldn't pay any attention to it. So it should be some stuff which is really worth to pay attention to. And then the curiosity is interest and curiosity. When you see children, they see much more than adults do. What for an adult is just boring. It doesn't pay any attention to it. The child is still interested because the child sees many things for the first time, and the adult has seen these things many times and doesn't pay any attention to it. So we should have still the curiosity of a child and see things which we think we already know as for the first time. Now you would say that's impossible, but I would say I can tell you, yes. Somebody who has this constant curiosity will find each day a new revelation, full of mysteries. Life is so profound, and supposedly human beings are also profound, that you will never end until you die. Newton said, what we know is just a drop, and what we don't know is a big ocean. So at least know, discover as much as you can, as long as you live. So we can learn, and we should learn, and be curious to discover things anew as long as we learn. It has nothing to do with age. And then you keep the mind sharp. One thing helps tremendously: critical thinking. I know many people don't like this critical thinking. They say we should be tolerant. We should tolerate everything. Everybody is nice, everybody is fine, every religion is as good as any other religion. We should be tolerate and tolerate Islam, and we should tolerate any stupidity. That is mental laziness. I found out that after my theater performances, many people say, felicitaciones, it was great. So, and very few people analyze. So this kind of avoiding critical thinking means that you cannot see any betterment. You cannot see another possibility. It's a kind of a sign of ignorance, a sign of lack of culture, to be too tolerant and to tolerate even intolerance. Critical thinking means that you have a sharp mind and to cut through all this entanglement, mental entanglement. In Buddhism, it is called the sword of wisdom. You cut through illusions. And that's really what the sharp mind is. It's like a cutting sword. For this, obviously, it's not just criticize in a stupid way. It's criticize because you know better. For example, I have more knowledge about the Christianity than most of the Christians. They even don't know their own Bible. So I can criticize the Bible because I have studied it, I have wrote about it, I have a lot of videos made about it. So I know much more, and I have the right to criticize it. And I got quite a lot of feedback from young people from South America. And they said, you helped me a lot with your videos, with your critical videos about Christianity. You know, Christianity is very strong, still very strong in South America. So they said, you opened my eyes, especially about this stupid things about sin. What is sin? I feel like a sinner, and then the fear of the hell and all these stupid things. And I show these young people the truth. There is no sin, there is no hell. The hell is inside. If there's a hell, it's inside. It's nowhere outside. So critical thinking needs a sharp mind. Think about the sword of wisdom. And now the last point, your self-image. How old you feel. There is this saying, there can be a young mind in an old body, and there can be an old mind in a young body. There are people, when they reach 40, 50 years, they're already old. You can hear it when they are talking. There's no freshness in their way of thinking. They are just repeating old patterns. No original ideas. The way how they speak, they are already ready-made phrases. No language of their own. And there are people, very few, but there are people. The body is old, but their mind is fresh. Their mind is awake. They have their own, they dare to think their own thinking. And they speak a personal language. They look for the right words and don't repeat ready-made sentences. So it is very important how old you feel. Forget about the numbers of your age. That's not your real age. Your real age is how you feel, how young your mind is. If you are still learning, if you're really open to see old things in a new way, never get into a dead routine. And very important is we have what will you do with your sharp mind? Keep it? No, it should be applied. There are two ways to act it out. One is when you're alone. Be creative. Have something which comes out of you. Most people are consumers. They go to the concert, they see the ballet folkloric, or they travel around, see the butterflies in Michoacan. It's coming from outside, consuming. But very few people are creative. They are creating something which comes from them, from inside out. So, if you're alone, what can you do? Some people are painting. At least when you paint, let's say, a nice girl, your mind has to be there because you want to get the exact shape of the colors. So that's a hobby you have. You create something. The other thing is writing. The first and most simple would be write a diary. That's a great help because what have you done and what have you felt and what have you thought during this day? And write it down and find out the right words which expresses what you felt. These scrabble and scrabble and scrabble, that's not creative. Writing is creative. And then write something original. I mean, a very strange view. Not this normally, oh, being in Mexico is such a wonderful experience, and the people are so nice, and the food is good, and the climate is good. Okay, write something fantastic, which really is beyond reality. So it stimulates your fantasy. So that's being creative when you're alone. And then, very important, apply your sub mind in a social environment, working with a group. Though you get some feedbacks, it stimulates you. It's very important. Don't stay alone. If you stay alone, your mind becomes duller and duller and duller. You need some challenge from other people who challenges your way of thinking also, and you have to look for some arguments. So get involved in some volunteer work. And a very good exercise is also what I know that some people are doing. They are reading a book together. So you read one chapter during one week, and next week people are coming together and they discuss what they read. That's an excellent exercise because there you can see how much you remember what you read, because you need your arguments based on what you have read. And obviously, the best thing is teaching. Well, I know a lady who said, I would like to teach piano, piano, but my Spanish is not good. Crazy. For teaching piano, you need a couple of words and learn the five fingers in Spanish. That's not so difficult. And you get into a situation, let's say with young Mexicans, it's the only way to learn Spanish. It Otherwise it would be you cannot learn swimming in a classroom. You have to jump into the water. And then you do your movement, and that's the only way you learn how to swim. So get into a certain teaching situation, and then you are forced to pick up some words, understand if you don't understand everything what people say, but if you pick up 3 words out of 10, at least, aha, maybe they mean this. So that stimulates your mind. I never took any class of Spanish, not English. When I came to Mexico, after 1 month, I started directing theater. Oh, it was a translation of German poetry, so obviously I knew the German, but I heard every day the actors repeating the text of Spanish. So I got it in my ear. And after 6 months being in Mexico, I already translated my first German play into Spanish. How? Well, there was no Google at this time. So I had to look most of the words up in a dictionary. But the effort to look it up in a dictionary helped that I could retain the word then. And then the other advantage was my vocabulary, because there were words which people don't use so often in daily life. They were in the dictionary. So I learned other words which are literary Spanish. So get involved as a volunteer in some teaching situation, and then teaching. You are in front of a group, and when you teach something, let's say you talk about history, you have the facts in your mind. There are people that are using the cell phone. If something really interests you, you have it here and not here. So really, these are my recommendations. How to sharpen your mind, how to check your memory, how to apply your sharp mind. I hope that gives you some idea. And maybe you do something and don't waste your time. Our last years on earth should be our best years, because we don't worry about money anymore. We have a lot of time, and we have a lot of life experience. It's much easier to connect one thing with another one, because I have experienced so many things. And enjoy your life in a very intensive form. It is not making a world tour and seeing in 2 months 6 European capitals. It's the quality, not the quantity. The quality is consciousness, an intense consciousness, being conscious what you are doing. Our mind is the most precious thing we have. You can lose an arm, you can lose a leg, but if you lose your mind, you are gone.